Good evening, and thanks for allowing me this time to speak to you. My name is Peter Warren III, and I'm a native son of Walton County. I was born and raised here and educated in our schools. I hail from Point, Washington, where I live with my wife and our pets. My father's family's owned property here since the 50s, and my parents moved down here in '84 and raised my younger brother and I in Seagrove. Commissioner Nick here can probably remember me sitting in a high chair eating some hush puppies in his restaurant that day. I love this place that's raised me, and I feel privileged to have watched it grow and change over my lifetime so far. But I'm here today speaking to you as a citizen to ask y'all to do something that should have been done a long time ago. I'm asking that we remove the Confederate flag flying out there on the courthouse lawn. There's not a good reason I can see for it to fly there, and there's several good reasons why it should not. The Confederate States of America was a rebel faction that through a violent and bloody war sought to preserve their states' rights to maintain the institution of chattel slavery, the literal ownership of humans as property. Alexander Stephens, the vice president of the Confederacy, said so in his cornerstone address when he said, quote, "Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, the subordination to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth." End quote. The institution of slavery is a stain on our nation and our community that we may never wash out. But the least we can do here in our little corner of the world is to choose not to celebrate or honor those that stood up and fought for it. The horror of slavery was not limited just to forced labor. Enslaved persons in our state and across the South lived horrible lives. They were captured against their will in their home countries and brought here like livestock on ships. They were bought and sold at auctions, stripped of their names, and separated from their families. Forced to work and deprived of all rights, they could not marry, could not own property, could not vote, or seek education. They were beaten, whipped, raped, tortured, and lynched. In Walton County, as of the 1860 census, there were hundreds of slaves owned here. The account of the enslaved population is similar to a bill of goods. They were recorded by their age, their race, sex, and their owners' names. They were not considered human. The flag flying out on the lawn today represents the people who sought to continue this treatment of the enslaved blacks in America. The Confederacy lost the war, and the enslaved were eventually freed. But racial justice has still not been achieved in this country as we continue to see these issues play out today. In the 1960s, when the Civil Rights Movement began to gain ground in this country, a group sometimes called the Cult of the Lost Cause set out to rewrite this dark chapter in American history. They erected monuments across the South celebrating the generals and leaders of the Confederacy, literally placing these men on pedestals and rewriting an account of the war through rose-colored glasses. The monument to the Confederate dead out front of this building was erected in 1871, 6 years after the war ended. But this flag began flying in our county in 1964, raised in repudiation of the Civil Rights Movement. It was flown to reinforce the ideas of white supremacy and remind black Americans living in or traveling to or through our county of their place in subjugation to whites. Any flag of the Confederacy, whether it be the 7-star flag that flies today or the battle flag that flew until 2015, it harkens back to a dark time in our country's history. And while thousands upon thousands have laid down their lives to preserve the right to free expression, including the right of individuals to fly whatever flag they want on their private property, this flag should not be flown on American public land. It's unpatriotic and sends the wrong message to our residents, visitors, and the world at large. Let's fold it up and put it away. Now, some might say this is an attempt to hide our history or our heritage. It is not. It's imperative that we confront our history. My family in Alabama owned dozens of slaves, and some fought and died for the Confederate Army. My great-great-grandfather, Joe Horn Sr., was a prominent member of the KKK in Laverne, Alabama. Now, I'm not proud of these members of my family because they did some truly horrible things. I do, however, think it's incumbent on me to help right those wrongs of my ancestors and try and move our society forwards and make our world a little bit better and a little bit more equitable place for everyone to live. Before we can do that, before we can move forwards, it's important for us to acknowledge the past in an honest way and reckon with some difficult truths. Can I have a bit more time?
Thank you, please.
Perhaps it's time we have a conversation as a county about that history. Maybe the monument to Confederate dead should be joined by a monument to remember those enslaved people that lived and died here in Walton County. Or perhaps it should be moved back to its original place in the cemetery in Uchiana. Or a monument to the Uchi Indians that lived here before any European settlers. Maybe we should create a museum of our history as a county that includes all aspects of the lives of the people that brought it to be where it is today. I would certainly be interested to get involved with that because it's a proud and interesting history. But even if the Civil War was fought about whether or not we should have adopted the metric system, or whether Abraham Lincoln shouldn't have been allowed to wear a top hat that was that tall, the fact is that the Confederacy lost, and we don't fly losers' flags in this country. You fly the flag of your country, your state, or in some places the flags of your allies, but not the flag of a vanquished rebel faction, even if your ancestors fought on that side. To sum it up, I and many others don't see good reasons why this flag should fly here today. It doesn't document our history in any meaningful way. It doesn't remind us of our culture. It doesn't add anything positive to a conversation about heritage. It only serves to assert the values of white supremacy, which are not values that should be hallowed on public ground. So let's work together to find better ways to celebrate our shared heritage, our shared land, and our shared visions for a better future. Let's start by taking down this flag. And then let's focus on what actually makes us proud of our Southern heritage in Walton County. The natural beauty of the land and our diverse ecosystems and wildlife here, the bounty of the Gulf and the Bay and the river and our soil. There are myriad ways that we can celebrate our history and heritage that work for everyone, and that's what we should strive for. Commissioners, thank you for your time. I implore you to do the right thing and take up a vote and vote to remove the flag on the courthouse lawn.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Clerk.